They didn't just watch me fall, they smiled while I collapsed. They clapped while I cracked. They drank to my downfall like it was their coronation. Not one hand reached out, not one voice called back, because I wasn't falling to them, I was finally returning to my place. They always said I reached too high, talked too big, walked like I already arrived. I didn't fit in. I tried too hard. I wanted too much. So when the walls caved in, they didn't flinch. They laughed. Because the ambitious one finally bled, and to them, that was balance restored. But here's what they'll never understand. I wasn't breaking. I was being remade. I lost everything, and that includes the masks, the fake smiles, the sugar-coated friendships, the circle that clapped louder when I failed than when I fought. Money disappeared. Status vanished. Even my own name felt like a joke I couldn't unhear. I became the ghost of their gossip, the walking reminder that dreaming big gets you killed. They called it karma. I called it clarity. Let me say it clear so the echoes carry. I don't hate them. They were never the enemy. They were just the proof. The proof that the world doesn't punish weakness. It worships comfort. It fears ambition dressed in silence. It crucifies anyone who dares to want more than just enough. But me, I was born allergic to average. Even as I drowned in debts, doubt, and darkness, I knew. This wasn't death, this was delivery. I lost everything, and they celebrated, because in their eyes, I was finally normal, finally taught a lesson, finally back in the cage with them. But let me remind you, I was never one of them, not truly. I was the storm walking through their sunshine, the crack in their glass ceiling, the mirror they couldn't look into without shattering. So they watched me break, and they cheered. But I never needed applause. I needed the silence to hear my real voice, not the one shaped by validation, but the one sharpened by fire. They took everything, but they gave me something greater, truth. The kind of truth that strips you bare and leaves you on your knees, naked, forgotten, alone. And in that moment, I met the only ally I ever needed, pain. Not the kind you run from, the kind you learn to dance with, the kind Napoleon Hill wrote about, the pain that turns desire into domination, the kind that forces your soul to either die or evolve. So yes, they laughed when I lost everything, but in doing so, they gave me something priceless. They gave me the reason to never return, not to them, not to the old me, not to the world that only applauds when you're small enough not to scare them. I was the punchline. Now I'm the plot twist, and the story isn't over. They called it a fall, but I call it my rise without permission, my start without spotlight, my rebirth without applause. They laughed, but that laughter will die in their throats when they realize what I lost was never mine, and what I became, they could never own. When the noise stopped, the truth started screaming. No more distractions, no more applause, no more pretending I belonged. Silence isn't peaceful, it's surgical. It cuts you open, spills your thoughts on the floor, and dares you to pick the truth from the lies. And when everything was gone, the noise, the money, the masks, I heard things I never heard before. The whisper of regret, the echo of wasted time, the shrill voice of fear pretending to be logic, and the soft, trembling whisper of a dream, still alive, but barely breathing. When the world goes silent, you start hearing God, or the devil. I heard both. I stopped praying. I started planning, because I realized something. Hope is just fear wearing perfume. It smells sweet, but it never moves. So I started listening deeper to the voices that kept me stuck, the fake humility, the toxic gratitude, the lies disguised as balance. You should be grateful. For what? For the coffin they wanted to bury me in? For the mediocrity they worship as religion? I unlearned everything, every rule they fed me, every cage they dressed up as a crown. Napoleon Hill said the devil hides in the idle mind. I didn't just meet him. I shook his hand. I looked him in the eye, and I saw what he really was. Excuse for not starting, excuse for not continuing, excuse for being scared and calling it wisdom. I was my own devil, and I was tired of negotiating, so I started writing new laws, not in ink, in blood, in sweat, in silence. No more searching for purpose, I would create it. No more waiting for permission, I would take it. The world said, be realistic. I said, reality is programmable. And I'm done running on someone else's code. I stopped talking to people and started talking to my future. I asked him what he needed. He said discipline, obsession, ruthlessness. He didn't say support. He didn't say luck. He didn't say balance. So I buried the old me, the one who hesitated, the one who asked for signs, the one who begged for validation. Now I only listen to the silence, because silence tells you who you really are. And I was forged in it. I don't fear being alone. I crave it, because in that darkness, where nobody claps, nobody calls, nobody believes, that's where gods are born. The mind was noisy when I was weak. Now it's a weapon. Now it obeys. Now it kneels before one command: win. And that didn't come from motivation. That came from starvation, of praise, of comfort, of lies. They said I disappeared, but I didn't vanish. I went inward. I went deeper than they ever dared to look. And what I found wasn't peace, wasn't love, it was fire. And that fire doesn't burn me anymore. It builds me. So now every quiet moment is sacred. Every silence is scripture, because the world taught me to fear the stillness. But the stillness, that's where I found my war plan. This wasn't healing, this was resurrection. Not to become what I was, but to become what they thought impossible. I learned to kill thoughts before they killed me. Not with kindness, with execution. Excuses, shot on sight. Doubt, strangled in its sleep. The need for approval, burned, buried, forgotten. My mind used to be a playground. Now it's a fortress. Ruthless, silent, obedient. You want change? Don't start with your habits. Start with your head, because the mind is not your friend. It is a beast that will betray you unless you chain it, train it, and teach it to starve for war. I didn't heal. I reprogrammed. I didn't journal. I interrogated every belief like a hostile witness. Maybe later. Dead. I'm not ready. Dead. What will they think? Dead. 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 I didn't do self-care. I did self-surgery. Without anesthesia, without apology, comfort. That's the lie they sold you. That's the drug that keeps lions leashed. You want truth? Here it is. Comfort is the silent killer of greatness. It feels like peace, but it's a coffin dressed in pillows. Society says be happy. I say be in control, because happiness is an emotion. Control is a decision, and control is permanent. There was a time I waited to feel motivated, to feel ready. Now I don't move based on feeling. I move like a machine. No heartbeat, just commands, just results. Emotions? I don't fight them. I override them. They're whispers in a room I no longer visit. Every day I wake up, I don't ask, how do I feel? I ask, what must be done? Because that's the difference between a slave and a soldier. The slave waits for permission, the soldier follows orders. I rewrote the orders. Do I get tired? Yes. Do I feel pain? Always. But it doesn't matter. Why? Because I've replaced emotion with mission. This isn't motivation. This is reprogramming. This is alchemy, turning fear into fuel, turning weakness into ritual, turning failure into formula. People think discipline is waking up early. Number discipline is killing the part of you that argues with purpose. It's making your mind kneel before your will. You want to rise? Then wage war. But don't point outward, point inward, because the first enemy is always the one wearing your face. I sat down with my mind like a dictator with a defector, and I gave it a choice: submit or be silenced. It fought, it screamed, it begged, but in the end, it obeyed, because I outlasted it. You don't need more motivation, you need more control. You don't need a vision board, you need a war board. Every lie, every excuse, every weakness, targeted, isolated, destroyed. This isn't about becoming the best version of yourself. That phrase is soft. This is about becoming the final version, the one no one saw coming, the one even you feared, because of how untouchable it would be. You know why they can't stop me now? Because they still feel, they still flinch, they still care. But me, I feel nothing for weakness, because I buried mine, and I marked the grave. Here lies the man who used to wait. Now, I don't wait, I command, and the world listens, because when the mind obeys, everything else follows. I learned to kill thoughts before they killed me, not with kindness, with execution, excuses, shot on sight, doubt, strangled in its sleep, the need for approval, burned, buried, forgotten. My mind used to be a playground. Now it's a fortress, ruthless, silent, obedient. You want change? Don't start with your habits, start with your head, because the mind is not your friend. It is a beast that will betray you unless you chain it, train it, and teach it to starve for war. I didn't heal, I reprogrammed, I didn't journal. I interrogated every belief like a hostile witness. Maybe later, dead. I'm not ready, dead. What will they think? Dead, dead, dead. I didn't do self-care. I did self-surgery, without anesthesia, without apology. Comfort? That's the lie they sold you. That's the drug that keeps lions leashed. You want truth? Here it is. Comfort is the silent killer of greatness. It feels like peace, but it's a coffin dressed in pillows. Society says, be happy. I say, be in control. Because happiness is an emotion, control is a decision, and control is permanent. There was a time I waited to feel motivated, to feel ready. Now I don't move based on feeling. I move like a machine. No heartbeat, just commands, just results. Emotions, I don't fight them. I override them. They're whispers in a room I no longer visit. Every day I wake up, I don't ask, how do I feel? I ask, what must be done? Because that's the difference between a slave and a soldier. The slave waits for permission. The soldier follows orders. I rewrote the orders. Do I get tired? Yes. Do I feel pain? Always. But it doesn't matter. Why? Because I've replaced emotion with mission. This isn't motivation. This is reprogramming. This is alchemy. Turning fear into fuel. Turning weakness into ritual. Turning failure into formula. People think discipline is waking up early. Discipline is killing the part of you that argues with purpose. It's making your mind kneel before your will. You want to rise? Then wage war. But don't point outward. Point inward. Because the first enemy is always the one wearing your face. I sat down with my mind like a dictator with a defector, and I gave it a choice. Submit or be silenced. It fought, it screamed, it begged. But in the end, it obeyed. Because I outlasted it. You don't need more motivation. You need more control. You don't need a vision board. You need a war board. Every lie, every excuse, every weakness, targeted, isolated, destroyed. This isn't about becoming the best version of yourself. That phrase is soft. This is about becoming the final version, the one no one saw coming, the one even you feared, because of how untouchable it would be. You know why they can't stop me now? Because they still feel, they still flinch, they still care. But me, I feel nothing for weakness because I buried mine and I marked the grave. Here lies the man who used to wait. Now, I don't wait, I command, and the world listens. Because when the mind obeys, everything else follows. They thought I wanted revenge, but I became something worse, the result of their underestimation. They tried to break me. All they did was build me, tried to bury me, but I was the seed. And now the roots have cracked the concrete. I didn't come back for validation. I came back as a reminder of what happens when you laugh too early, when you mock the quiet ones, when you mistake silence for surrender. They thought I was gone. Now they can't look away, because I don't walk like I used to. I don't speak like I used to. I don't blink. I don't beg. I command. Now when I enter the room, they adjust their posture. Their tone changes. Their fake confidence cracks under my presence, not because I'm loud, but because I'm what they can never fake. Earned, hardened, real. They worship what I built, but they could never survive what I endured. And now they're stuck reposting my words, trying to decode my moves, mimicking my mindset with mouths that once mocked it. You want to know what real power is? It's not revenge. It's becoming the standard. It's when your results become their religion, when your silence is louder than their noise ever was. They say, you've changed. I unlocked. I removed the softness, scraped the rust, ripped off the parts of me built to please. Now all that's left is fire, focus, final form. I am not what they expected. I am what they created when they chose betrayal over belief. I don't chase, I replace. I don't fight for space, I own it. Because once you understand your worth, you stop explaining your presence. Now they come to me with watered-down apologies and plastic smiles, and I give them what they gave me: silence. You see, they were my training, my resistance, my pressure. And pressure either breaks you or it becomes your blueprint. I didn't rise to prove them wrong. I rose because staying down was a lie. And I'm done living lies just to keep others comfortable. They made me a villain. So I studied villains, and I realized they don't beg, they build. They don't need love. They command loyalty. This isn't a comeback, it's an evolution. This is what happens when faith becomes fact, when the boy they laughed at becomes the force they fear. Their applause means nothing to me now, because I remember their laughter. I remember who vanished, who doubted, who clapped when I fell. And now, they watch me from the sidelines, wishing, wondering, whispering my name like a spell they can't cast. They thought I wanted revenge. I wanted distance. And in that distance, I found dominance because I am no longer a reaction. I am the result. I am the consequence of what happens when you betray the wrong soul. So remember this: I don't need revenge. I became something stronger. I became the standard they now kneel to. Their gods failed them. Now they beg from mine, and it looks a lot like me. I stopped chasing power the day I became it, not with noise, not with fame, but with control of my mind, of my habits, of my fate. Because real power isn't loud. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't need a title, a crowd, a crown. Power is the silence before the shift. It's the pause before the quake. It's walking into a room and gravity changing direction. They asked, "Who gave it to you?" No one. It wasn't given. I took it, piece by bloody piece, through fire, failure, and repetition. While they waited for blessings, I became the storm that blesses and breaks. I don't ask for seats. I build the table. I don't knock. I take the door with me. I am no longer invited. I am inevitable. They taught you power comes from others, connections, status, permission, lies. It comes from mastery of your mind, your emotions, your direction. Napoleon Hill said, "Desire backed by faith knows no such word as impossible." He was right, because when I combined desire with discipline, faith with fury, silence with precision, I stopped reacting to the world. I started rewriting it. I don't move like them, because I'm not in the game. I am the board. I am the rules. I am the edge they fear but pretend not to see. This isn't arrogance. This is math. You multiply focus with time, and you divide it by doubt. You get results that speak in thunder, the kind of results that make kings kneel, the kind of moves that don't need marketing, because they echo, they linger, they infect the culture. Now they use my words. Now they wear my mindset like a fashion trend. Now they quote what they once questioned, and I let them, because gods don't correct mortals. We influence from distance, silently, completely. I became everything I once prayed for by becoming the one who stopped praying and started building. No genie, no mentor, no savior, just me. A man with nothing but a mind too dangerous to stay silent and too sharp to be stopped. They thought power was about control over others, but it was always about control over self. The world bends for those who bend themselves first. So I bent, under pressure, under ridicule, under isolation. And when I stood, the world adjusted. Let me make it clear, this isn't motivation. This is domination. Not of people, but of limitation. Not of others, but of outcomes. I no longer hope. I execute. I no longer react. I orchestrate. They say power corrupts. Power reveals. And what it revealed in me was truth forged in obsession, peace guarded by obsession, and a purpose that doesn't expire. I am not the product of luck. I am not the child of chance. I am the architect of inevitability. And when you become power, you stop chasing it. You stop needing to prove. You just move, and the world moves with you, or gets left behind. They still try to explain me, to box me, to decode me, but I am not meant to be understood. I'm meant to be felt, like a warning, like prophecy, like the weight of realization that you were never in control, because someone else already took the wheel. Power wasn't given, it was claimed, not overnight, not in the light, but in the shadows, in the silence, in the sacred rage that said, I will not die average. And now, I don't speak to be heard, I speak to be remembered, because I am no longer part of the story, I am the standard by which it is measured. They laughed when I lost everything. Now, they quote me, study me, pray to be me. I was their joke. Now I'm their formula. I was the warning. Now I'm the blueprint. They used to roll their eyes. Now they recite my words like scripture. They used to mock the way I thought. Now they teach it as mindset, as strategy, as gospel. They said I was obsessed. Now they call it focus. They said I was lost. Now they call it a vision quest. They said I was too intense. Now they pay to feel the fire I live in. They laughed when I had nothing, when I was broken, when I was silent. But silence was my studio. Failure was my forge. And now they can't afford the price of my presence. I don't hate them. I don't even see them. Because gods don't look down. They just let gravity do its work. They didn't believe in me. Now they believe because of me. They said I was arrogant, but I was just early. They said I was delusional, but I was just different. They said I wouldn't make it, but I didn't come to make it. I came to remake it. And now the same mouths that mocked are wide open in awe. The same hands that pointed are now reaching for help. But I don't reach back because I remember. I remember who vanished, who laughed, who whispered behind walls they thought I'd never climb over. They built narratives, I built empires. They played critics, I played chess. And now the board is mine, the clock is mine, the game is over. They used to say, he's too much. Now they ask, how can I be like him? But you can't. Not because I'm special, but because you flinched where I endured. You doubted where I decided. You folded where I forged. You feared the fire. I became it. They used to laugh because they thought I lost. But I wasn't losing. I was loading. Every insult, fuel, every betrayal, blueprint, every failure, foundation. They thought I died in the dirt. I was just rooting. So when I rose with the hunger of every sleepless night carved into my chest. And now I am what they worship, quietly, desperately, secretly. They won't say it aloud, but they study my every move. They dissect my mindset. They whisper my name in rooms I've never entered, because they know they were wrong. They know I didn't just rise, I transcended. This isn't ego, this is evidence, this isn't revenge, this is royalty. I don't need statues, I am the monument. I don't need trophies, I am the proof. They laughed, but I became legend, not because I played their game, but because I rebuilt the board and charged rent for the squares. They thought I needed their validation, but I turned their laughter into silence and their silence into echoes that carry my name. You want to know what true legacy is? It's when the people who doubted you start teaching the principles you lived. It's when your failure becomes their foundation. It's when your darkness becomes their map. It's when they worship what they used to mock. So laugh again if you want. But just know, the next time you speak my name, do it with reverence. Do it with caution. Do it with the awareness that I no longer walk among you. I tower. Because they laughed when I lost everything. And now, I own what they begged for.